Ladies and gentlemen, this interview is brought to you by Burn It Up Coaching and the 21-Day Challenge. And if you are an entrepreneur or a high achiever and you have been feeling like you're vaguely dissatisfied, you're unhappy, you're stuck, overwhelmed, you just aren't making the progress that you want to make in life, then the 21-Day Challenge might be a perfect fit to reignite your self-belief, your passion, your action, your vision, your clarity like never before, so you can succeed like never before. And that's what we do over the 21 days. You get crystal clear on that one target, number one target, and every day we have daily check-ins, weekly deep dive calls to make sure that you're on track and on point, really getting the most you can out of your time, your energy, and your life, because that's what we're here to do, to be our greatest possible self and do everything that we can to create the life of our dreams. So if you're interested in the 21-Day Challenge, send me a message. Would love to talk to you and hear how we can reignite you and your belief, your passion, your results, okay? And it's not for everyone. It's very intense, but if you feel like it's fit for you, then send me a message. Would love to talk. Now, for the iTunes review of the week, that's going to be by Mr. Rico Cavaglia. And Rico says, I love Chris's title and subject. One of the biggest challenges we have as humanity is a lack of expectation of what is possible. All of his podcasts are exactly about how to become your best possible self, because that's why you are here and because you can. Great stuff. Thank you. Rico, thank you so much. I appreciate you, man. You're a rock star. And, if you want to leave us a review, go to beyourgps.com/iTunes, and you can do that there, or you can search Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self on iTunes. Thank you in advance for doing that. I appreciate you. And now for the man of the hour, Mr. Mac Prichard. And I'm pulling up his awesome bio right now. As soon as I do that, and before I do that, I just want to say what he's doing for the world. For me, it moves my heart, because my dad was once unemployed, and I just know it caused a lot of challenge and stress on our family, and Mac is really bringing a powerful solution to that. So I'm really grateful to have him on, to have him share about his wisdom and what he knows about that. So the man of the hour, Mac Prichard. Mac Prichard is the founder and publisher of MaxList, an online platform that connects talented professionals with meaningful local work opportunities. Founded in Portland, Oregon in 2001, MaxList serves job seekers and employers with a local job board, as well as courses, books, events, and other resources that bring people together to find better jobs and happier careers. Mac built 2 small businesses on the strength of his professional network, and he has taught thousands of people how to grow through careers through their relationships with others. Mac shows job seekers and employers how to break down the barriers between them by teaching empathy, curiosity, and people-focused hiring with a practical nuts and bolts style. He is also the author of Land Your Dream Job Anywhere and host of the weekly career advice podcast, Find Your Dream Job. Mac, are you ready to rock this?
I am, Chris.
He is. Awesome.
Yeah.
Welcome to Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self. It's really great to have you here, man. Thank you so much.
Well, it is an honor to be on the show. I really appreciate you inviting me to be part of the program.
Absolutely. We're going to get a lot of gold and juice out of this interview to really figure out, how do we tap into this hidden job market to really be our greatest possible selves, these things that don't get posted anywhere, to find and tap into these hidden resources. It's going to be a blast. So thank you. And let's start off by talking about the theme of the day, which is, what would it be like if? All right, and this mindset of possibility, what would it be like if? And we want to turn that over to you, Mac, and see how has that impacted your life, this concept of possibility, of dreaming, of what would it be like if?
Well, here's the difference thinking about that has made in my life. I think, like a lot of people, Chris, at the start of my career and early in my education, I waited to be picked. And I think we all do this when we enter the workplace. We don't know any better, so we apply for jobs and we wait for the employer to call us. And while we're waiting for that call, we apply for some more positions. And whether we do this in the workplace or when we're thinking about college or the high school we might want to attend or other things that we want to get involved in the community, we wait to be chosen, and that is a big mistake. And I realized that personally in my 20s when I was out of work for more than 6 months.
Wow.
And at that point, Chris, I was in my mid-20s. I'd had 3 really terrific jobs. When I finished college, I wanted to work in politics, I wanted to get paid to write, and I wanted to work on U.S. foreign policy. And I got to do all 3 of those things by the time I was 26.
Wow.
I worked in a U.S. Senate race right after graduation. I was a researcher and an analyst for a human rights group in Washington, D.C. I got paid to write. I ran a newsletter. And then I worked for a human rights group that took members of Congress to Central America. This was way back in the 1980s. All these jobs came to me very easily. And when I left that 3rd job, I thought, well, it'll be easy to find the next one. What I didn't know was I had been tapping into what's called the hidden job market, and I hadn't waited for someone to choose me. I'd been going out and making connections, and that led to these wonderful opportunities. But instead, I did what I think most job seekers do. I responded to ads, and I was out of work for a long time. So when you challenged me to think about what if and the possibilities that are open to all of us, I would say when you think about your career, but also in other parts of your life, don't wait to be chosen.
Wow.
And we're going to talk about how you can do that when you're looking for work. But the principles we're going to talk about today can apply to other parts of your life as well.
That's beautiful. So powerful. I love it. And that's like, I never even thought that you would like come up with that. You know, it's really a brilliant pearl of wisdom from that statement of what would it be like, possibility, you know. So that's amazing. So don't wait to be picked. Don't wait to be chosen. Go out there and get it. I love it, Max. So tell us a little bit more about MaxList and what you got going on these days for anyone who's just connecting with you for the first time or wanting to know more about you.
It's an online community that, as you said, helps people find meaningful work. And the way we do that is by publishing job postings in the Pacific Northwest. But because most jobs are never posted, Chris, and there are estimates out there that as many as 8 out of 10 positions are filled largely through word of mouth, we also teach people through our blog, our books, courses, and our podcast how to look for work. And we do this because we hear from so many job seekers. Our website attracts about 40,000 people a month. And like me in my 20s, most people think that the way you look for work is you pay attention to public postings and you file an application and you wait to be called. And that's not how it works. The good news is you can learn how to find these so-called hidden jobs, the ones that are filled by word of mouth. It's a skill. It's like riding a bicycle, learning trombone in high school, learning how to drive. It can be mastered. It just takes practice and study. And that's a big, big focus of our work at MaxList. We want to give people the skills they need so that they can find work they love.
Beautiful, beautiful. Very succinct. I love how you shared that with us. And it's clear that you've definitely practiced your communication. I love that you are a podcast host as well, because you're very, very well spoken. So let's go back into the journey, because you went through this period of time where, you know, you didn't know where to look or how to look for the jobs. You were tapping into the hidden job market, but then you didn't realize what you were doing. So tell us about what happened from there. How did you evolve through that period of time?
Well, I cashed my last unemployment check, and I was living in Massachusetts at the time, so I think it was about 30 weeks. It was clearly more than, I must have been month 7. And to make ends meet, I started working part-time as a temp, but I clearly realized I needed to do something different. And my wife worked at a local university in Boston. Someone at the Career Services office agreed to meet with me, and I'm embarrassed. I can't remember the lady's name, but she spent probably 2 hours with me, Chris, and she took me through the basics of goal setting and what are called informational interviews, going out and having conversations with people about opportunities in a field. She taught me basics about networking and how to tap into the hidden job market. I used that information to set up a series of conversations with people in the world I wanted to work in. I decided, as a result of that conversation, I wanted to work in communications in politics in Boston and Massachusetts. So I made a list of people who worked in that world, and I had a set of conversations with them about who might be hiring, what people looked for, what skills I had to offer, what challenges I might face as I was talking to people and trying to get a job in that world. And I got such wonderful advice, and people were very generous with their time and their insights. And after 2 months, I got a job as the first spokesperson for Boston's Big Dig. And this was eventually the largest public works project in America.
Wow.
It was a $14 billion project.
Wow.
I was 26. I had the skills. I didn't have any inside political connections, which people think, oh, that's how you got that job. But it was largely through these conversations and having a clear goal and networking.
Wow.
And these are skills you can use to find any job, no matter what part of the country you might be in, or even the world.
So beautiful. So you got this job, public spokesperson.
Yeah.
And then how did we evolve from there into MaxList?
So my career has been in communications, and I've worked in politics, government, and nonprofits. And along the way, Chris, I've learned it's important to grow your network of professional contacts, but it's also even more important to serve your network.
Yeah.
And so I moved to Oregon in 1991. I worked down in the state capitol. I happened to live in Portland all this time. I wanted to stay in touch with my colleagues in state government when I left for a position in Portland. And the way I hit upon doing that is by sharing job postings. Because it was a way, and think about it, I'm sure you've had this experience, Chris. I know many of your listeners have. Every month or two, somebody sends us a job posting or an email, and they say, hey, we're hiring at my company or my nonprofit. If you know of good candidates, have them contact me or get in touch with my HR person. And the reason we do this is because we want to have good people work on our teams. And so we turn to our networks for advice. I would get those postings. I set up a very simple list of people I wanted to remain in touch with, but I also wanted to serve. And I started forwarding the postings. The years went by. The list grew very slowly. But after 9 years, running the list became a part-time job. And so I had started a public relations company that I continue to run today. I was paying someone to do this, run this list. And I said, well, this is crazy. I've got to charge because while I want to serve, I got to cover my costs.
Right.
So we set up a website. And once we did that, it really took off. And the reason why, Chris, is because we had created a network of people. And once we launched our site online, that network grew even faster because now people could find us. They could see what they were going to get. And today, MaxList employs 6 people. And as I mentioned, we serve about 40,000 people through the website.
That's awesome.
And through our other publications and our podcasts, we serve people all around the country.
Amazing. I'm curious, what were some of the biggest challenges in growing MaxList from, it was this kind of passion project and you say, hey, we're going to give this thing some legs and like actually make a website. From there, what were some of the challenges that you had to grow through to get to where we are today?
Well, I think one of the first challenges was for your listeners who are interested in becoming entrepreneurs or doing that, I didn't realize the value of what I offered and the problem I was solving. When I did, and because I didn't understand that, I waited far too long to transform a side project into a business. And businesses solve problems. And that's what we were doing. And the problem when I talked to employers that they told us we solved was they got fewer applicants and they got better qualified people because we had created an organic network of professionals in Oregon and Washington. And we were mimicking what hiring managers or our colleagues do when they send us that email that says, hey, if you know good people, send them my way. And that's what MaxList did. So I wish in hindsight I'd understood the value of it earlier. The other challenge I faced was I needed to learn how to run a job board. And it is a particular niche industry. There are conferences for it. There are consultants. And you need to master the nuts and bolts of whatever industry you work in so that you can do it well and serve your customers better. And it took me a while to figure out that lesson as well. So I think those would be the top two.
Beautiful. So we focused on the challenges. What about some of the biggest successes with your growth in terms of growing it? We know you're reaching 40,000 people a month on average. Is there any other big successes that happened along the way?
Well, what's most gratifying is the people that we meet, the job seekers who I'll meet at events or in the community. And Chris, they'll come up to me and they'll say, "Hey, remember that job in Burns or Clackamas County?" And I say this with humility, I don't, but they go on to say, "Hey, I got it. Thanks for helping me get that job." Wow. And they got the job. Our role was to publish the posting on our website, and maybe they took advantage of our educational materials and they learned tips about how to interview or the best way to write a cover letter. But again, they took the action, and playing a part in helping to make that happen is so gratifying. It's so satisfying.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love it. Well, I'm grateful we got to educate our listeners, whoever's tuning in what was the journey like? What were some of those things that were most important to you? And now I'd love to get into the specifics of how do we tap into this hidden job market, become more equipped to create the opportunities for us to succeed and excel in our careers. How do we do that, Mac?
Well, I think it starts, Chris, by being clear about what you want. And often when I meet with job seekers, and I said this myself at different points in my career, so I get it, but often when I meet with job seekers, I'll say, "What's your goal?" And the person will say, "Well, I'm keeping all my options open." And I know why people say that. They want to be open to new opportunities. They're uncertain exactly about what they want, and they might have some financial reasons. Maybe they've got bills that have to be paid urgently. So I say with respect, you gotta be clear about what you want. And the reason you do is because you can't be all things to all people. Employers hire problem solvers, and they want people with a particular set of skills and experiences that are going to make their problems go away. You got to recognize that. So sometimes when I press people, they say, "Well, I'm interested in this opportunity or that career," and that is okay. I love that. But you got to have a short list of 2 or 3 goals that you want to explore. Maybe, in my case, when I was in my 30s, I did a search and I thought, okay, I want to be a communications director for an elected official or a political campaign or for a university. Wow. So I made a list of people I knew in each of those 3 worlds, went out, talked to them about what opportunities were coming up, what hiring managers look for, what I thought I had to offer, and I got feedback. But as I had those conversations, Chris, I figured out that I really didn't want to work at a university. And I got insights into the other 2 fields, and it made me a much more successful candidate and helped me uncover opportunities that never got advertised. Because once you know where you want to go, once you know what you want to do, then you can figure out where you want to go and what the people in those worlds are hiring for. And the way you do that after you set your goal is you go out and have conversations. And they often take the form of what are called informational interviews. It may also mean networking at professional events or volunteering for an association in your field. Wow. When you do those things, you build relationships and you start to uncover these so-called hidden jobs that are filled by word of mouth. But you also build a reputation among people in that world, and they think of you for those opportunities.
Wow. So most people aren't taught to build relationships. They're more so taught, like, what's in it for me? How do I just apply? How do I just, I want this job, and it's about me getting this job versus, educating themselves, preparing themselves. What do you think is there any other mindset shifts that people can do to be more effective at more of the long-term approach of how do I prepare myself for this journey of meeting people, of connecting with people so that I can really show up as my best?
It's a great question. And I think it starts with understanding how hiring works. Because once you know how a system works, then you can make the system work for you. So and here's what you need to know about hiring managers. They're looking for people to solve problems.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing you need to know is they want to manage risk. Chris, I know, you're along in your career. You probably hired and had to fire people.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody likes to do it. It's painful for the organization and the individual.
Mm-hmm.
But it usually takes you 3 to 6 months to figure out that it's not a good fit.
Yeah.
Then you have to let the person go. That's painful. The work you hired them to do isn't quite done the way you wanted. Sometimes you have to do it all over again.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an expensive problem when you don't get it right.
Mm.
How do hiring managers manage that risk? They turn to people they trust, former colleagues, or they turn to people that are recommended to them by others that they trust. So once you recognize that principle is in play, your challenge as a job seeker is to get in front of hiring managers and either build a relationship with them or get an introduction to them by people that they trust. And you can do that through, again, informational interviews, networking, and volunteering. To your question about the job seeker who's thinking, well, I want a great job and I want to pay this and I wanted to do this kind of work, I say terrific, because when you tell me about a person like that, I think they probably got a very clear goal and they know what they want. And a lot of job seekers struggle with that. But once you figure out what you want, you've also got to think about what you can do for the employer. And you, again, recognize that employers hire problem solvers. So when you go in, show the employer, either in your application materials or your interviews or in all of those interactions, what you can do for the employer. And you need to think about yourself and your own needs too, but you can't think only about yourself.
Right. And I love that, thinking about what you can do for the employer, because a common question that I see being asked these days is, what can I do to support you? That's a real common entrepreneurship question. It's like, hey, what can I do to support you? It's like the common networking question. What questions should people be asking to better understand how to support the employer, how to show up prepared for the employer to do a better job, to make a better impression, acting, or not, I don't want to say acting as if they're knowledgeable, but being knowledgeable and showing up equipped with information?
Well, you got to do your homework. And it's shocking to me how many people apply for jobs without ever having looked at the company website, without ever having talked to somebody who might know someone in the company. And then it's also shocking how many people walk into a job interview thinking, well, I'm interested in this. I'd like to have a conversation to see if it might be good for me, or they just wing it. And a job interview is one of the most important business meetings you'll have in your career.
Wow.
And you might interview for dozens of jobs over the course of 30 or 40 years. And that sounds like a big number, but the choices that you make as a result of those meetings affect your life for years to come if you take that offer. So you've got to prepare for both. You got to do your homework before you send in an application, and you've got to prepare before you walk into an interview room. The number one thing I would say is you got to understand the employer's problems, and you've got to show both in your application materials and in your interview what you can do to solve those problems. How do you get that information? You can do it by doing some online research, find out what challenges a company faces. You can look on your LinkedIn account to see if you have connections with people inside that company or in that field, and have conversations with them about what is important to that company and that employer, and what keeps them up at night. Wow. And when you're in the interview, Chris, it's surprising to me. Often there are candidates who are asked, do you have any questions for us? And people say, well, no, I think I've got it all. And it's a lost opportunity. I can see from your reaction, you understand this. And I say this respectfully. Again, early in my career, I made this error too. It's a classic rookie error. That's a perfect opportunity for you to draw the employer out about their needs, their challenges. Wow. And it can be simple as asking during the course of that conversation, what keeps you up at night? Here's my favorite interview question of all time. I don't lead with this, but when it's my chance as a candidate to ask questions, I'll say to the hiring manager, if I'm fortunate enough to get this job, and you and I are sitting down in a year's time, we're doing my annual review, what are the 3 things you'll want me to tell you I've done for you?
Wow.
Yeah, and when you ask that question, the next thing that happens is the hiring manager sort of pauses, and she or he sort of leans back, and they think. And then because they're a little surprised.
Yeah.
Because you're thinking about them, not about yourself. And then they tell you something that wasn't in the job posting, that wasn't in the interview questions. And so the advantage that you have then as a candidate is you're getting an insight into that employer's problems that probably none of your competitors are getting.
Wow.
You're hearing something that nobody else that you're competing with is hearing. And the other advantage you have is an opportunity as you listen to what the manager tells you is to go back to her and say, well, have you thought about this? Or I had an experience like that, and this is what we did, and this is the result we produced.
Wow.
And you engage her in a conversation about her problems, her needs, and she starts to treat you like a peer.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you're in a staff meeting.
Right.
Not a job interview. You're having a conversation about how you can make her life easier.
Wow. That's incredible. It's almost like you energetically, so to speak, you get brought into the fold by asking that question. It's like, oh wow, well, welcome to the team, and here's what we want, and okay, let's talk about how to make it happen. It's awesome.
Right. And it's a question that is, based in some humility. You're not assuming that you're going to get the job.
Right.
But you're putting the employer first. Okay, what can I do for you? What are the 3 things you want to have really gotten done? But you're also getting insights that your competitors aren't getting.
Wow.
So people ask me all the time, how can I stand out in an interview? And I would say if you focus on the employer's needs and have a conversation and ask questions like that, you really will distinguish yourself from your competitors.
Wow. Yeah, and that's a great question for entrepreneurs or even for a life partner, say we're together, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, married for the next year. We want to look back in 1 year from now. What are the 3 things that we will have wanted to have accomplished? What are the three things we want to celebrate because we got it done, we made it happen, and we accomplished these things? So I think that's incredible. And even with clients, someone who's attempting to win a client, same kind of perspective. In 1 year from now, when you have signed up theoretically, let's say you decide to go with me as a service provider, and 1 year from now you're looking back, what are the 3 things you will have wanted to accomplish over that year?
Yeah, I love the comparison you're making because you're getting people to think about the outcomes they want, the results they want.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
and it is a model you can use with clients or employers. And once you know what that result is, then you can have a conversation about what it would take to make that happen. It's a kind of reverse engineering.
Yeah. I know for me, I had a lot of self-doubt and lacking confidence in the beginning of my journey. I'm curious what your wisdom and experience has given you in terms of the potential employees who are looking for jobs and they're not yet believing in themselves. They're still unsure. They know what they want. They're clear on their goals, but they just are lacking that self-confidence and self-worth. Do you have any guidance or feedback on how to grow that, how to show up in their self-confidence and being resourceful?
Well, one method I've seen work for a lot of people who are starting a new job is to look for early victories. Is there something you can make happen in your first 3 to 6 months in the job that demonstrates to your new colleagues and your new boss what you can accomplish? And when you do that, you stop being the new person and you start being a peer, because people will say, oh, she or he got that done. And so look for early victories. And I think also not only does it create confidence among your peers, it gives you confidence as a new person. And you stop being a new person and you start becoming part of the team. I think for people who are mid-career, or really any point you are in your career, it's always good to work with coaches and recognize, and sometimes a company will pay for that. Sometimes you may want to invest in it using your own resources. And also recognize that you're going to keep learning throughout your career. And I think that as you do so, you'll become more confident and even more successful. But you need to invest in yourself, whether it's in the form of coaching or attending conferences, but you need to be a lifelong learner. And when you do that, I think the confidence follows as well.
Beautiful. In terms of keeping their options open, let's say someone is in a career position, they're established, they've been there for 5, even 10 years. What's your recommendation on if they should go to a new career, a new position, they get a job recommendation or open position, something like that? How do they know if it's the right fit for them, or if they should make that leap or not?
Well, I think it's very normal for people to change careers. There was a time 40 or 50 years ago when that didn't happen frequently, but today in the workplace, people will make that switch probably 3 to 5 times during the course of a 40-year career. I think if you are working in a position, you're not looking for a new opportunity, but you get contacted by a recruiter, or perhaps a colleague says, oh, you should apply over there. They're looking for something. It's different from what you are doing now, but it sounds like you. I think before you apply, you've got to get clear about what you want to do next. And you need to invest time in setting goals. And if you're in a position and you're comfortable and you're thinking about a new position at another company where you'd be doing something very different, one of the best ways to find out if it might be a good fit for you is to talk to people who are doing that job, and also consider talking to people who have made a similar switch. So perhaps you're in a corporate environment, in a company, and your colleague knows you've always wanted to do, your CFO wanted to work in the nonprofit world, and the United Way is looking for a new CFO. You think, well, I should apply for that. I think that interests me. Before you do that, talk to some CFOs in the nonprofit world. Just 2 or 3. What challenges did they face or in their jobs? How did they deal with that? Who have they seen is successful? What kind of skills or experiences make them successful? And then try to find 1 or 2 people who have made the switch from the corporate world to the nonprofit world in a similar position, and ask them what objections they had to overcome when talking to hiring managers. What concerns did employers have? As you have those conversations, Chris, you'll figure out pretty quickly whether you want to continue to explore that new world. You'll also get insights you can use in your application materials and in your interviews that will help you be even more competitive.
That's beautiful. And I love that, what you do for people is you provide them a job posting board. This MaxList is, hey, here are the opportunities available. Here are the connections. And that's an online source of here are the opportunities. And then also on the other side of things, you network with people, and you've done this and you teach people to do this, to network with people so you can find out what are the opportunities in conversation, what are the opportunities in mindset, in the position. So I love how there's that parallel going on for you.
Yeah, and I'm very proud of the value that our job board offers both to employers and job seekers. And we're grateful for the business we get and the readership our job board attracts. But I also know that employers don't rely on job board listings alone. They're tapping into their networks. They're having conversations, they're reaching out to the leaders of associations, and they're asking for recommendations. So I want to make sure that our job seekers, the people who are looking at the job board, understand that that's how the world works. So here are 2 numbers I hope your listeners will keep in mind. One is 80%. And again, there are estimates out there that as many as 80% of all jobs never get posted.
Wow.
Now, let's say the number is 70% or 60% or 50%. Those are still substantial figures. But think about this. The other number is 100%. And most people spend 100% of their time looking at job boards. And our time is our most valuable asset. We only have so much of it. So when you're looking for a search or a new opportunity, yes, visit job boards like ours. And there are tens of thousands of great niche job boards out there. But think about how you spend your time. And if you're spending more than 30, even 40% of your time on job boards, you're missing out on so many great opportunities out there that are part of this so-called hidden job market. And that's why we offer the courses, the website articles, the books. Most of our content is free. It's all about the nuts and bolts of how to look for work. And most of it has nothing to do with looking at job boards. It's about networking, goal setting, informational interviews, all the tactics and strategies that will help you find and get one of these so-called hidden jobs.
Wow. If people had to boil the hidden jobs down to like one mindset shift, like one perspective shift, to go from just doing the job board to actively finding the hidden jobs, what would you say that key is?
It goes back to the conversation we had at the start of the interview. Don't wait to be picked. And the people who are filling out applications online and hitting the send button, and that's all they're doing, they're waiting to be picked. And again, I say it respectfully, I was there myself, but if your dream is to work at a Nike, I happen to be in the Pacific Northwest, or Columbia Sportswear, don't visit, yes, go to their websites, look at their job postings, but also figure out a way to get inside those companies and start talking to those folks. And you can do that. We are wired, we human beings, to help others. And the reason people often say no is because when we ask for help, we're unclear about what we want and how others can help us. A classic example of this, Chris, is people who reach out to others and say, well, I'd like to get coffee, or I'd like to pick your brain. And I've done that myself early in my career, so I say it respectfully, but you got to have a specific request. So if you want to meet someone because they work at Nike and you want to find out about opportunities there, you don't ask, you need to have a specific request where you say, well, I'd love to get together with you. I'm interested in exploring opportunities at Nike and other sportswear companies. Like to identify what hiring managers look for, how these positions get filled, what skills are most in demand. And when you have a conversation like that, it's called an informational interview. It's a business meeting. It runs 20 to 30 minutes. You build a connection with someone. You also share your story and your goals, and you can get insights into what those companies want that you can use both in interviews and in applications. And people will think of you when openings occur. And when that posting crosses their desk, they'll tell you about it. Wow. And that's how you navigate the hidden job market.
Awesome.
You don't stop at just the website. You step away from the computer and you go out and talk to people.
In terms of tapping into the hidden job market and having these informational business meetings, is there any wrong way to approach it, or any mistakes you see people making often?
It's a great question, because I think people are uncomfortable with these meetings because they're not sure how to do them. And so common mistakes are being unclear about what you want, not having an agenda, not being sure how to run the meeting, asking for a job, having unfocused or unclear requests. So here's the good news. There are lots of books out there about how to run an informational interview. And if you went to college, community college, or a four-year university, there's a career services office. And they love to hear both from students and grads. And so sit down, invest a couple of hours in figuring out how to run one of these meetings. Talk to a career counselor at a university, or go to your state employment department. They've got vocational counselors who can walk you through how to do this. And there's obviously lots of information online, and not only our website, but there are lots of good sources out there. But you have to invest time in learning how to do this. And it's not that hard. It just takes some focus.
Yeah. So is there anyone who can't learn how to do this? Is there any type or group of people or profession who isn't able to learn how to tap into the hidden job market?
I don't think so. Often people will say to me, well, there are some employers who have very formal hiring processes, and often they're thinking of government, law enforcement, sometimes universities, or big corporations. And my experience has been talking to hiring managers in those organizations. They may ask you to go through a public hiring process, but they still pay attention to their professional networks, and they're still open to having these kinds of conversations. But because they're a bit more rigid, you need to be even more clear about what you want when you reach out to people inside those organizations, and you need to run your informational interviews even better. But you can do it. I've seen many successful applicants who have been able to network their way through organizations that people said, oh, I can't get my call returned. Oh, it's too formal. Oh, they won't. The only way you can apply is by taking a test. And you may have to do that. You may have to come in through the front door, but there's always a back door, Chris. And the most successful applicants figure out how that back door works and how to get inside.
Wow, that's awesome. Is there any position you feel would be unwilling to have an informational meeting to share about what's going on in the industry because they're afraid someone's trying to get their job or something like that? Have you ever seen that?
Certainly, there are people who think about networking as a transactional relationship and tit for tat, or I see this particularly in people early in their career. They think, well, I've only got so many contacts, and if I'm giving something away, I'm losing. And the people I see who have the most success professionally and personally as well give without any expectation of getting anything in return. Wow. I'm guessing you're familiar with the books by Adam Grant. He's a professor at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, and he talks about networking and giving to others, and when you're generous, how much you benefit professionally and personally. And I've certainly seen that in my almost 40-year career. And it's so yes, you're right. There are people out there who might think, well, I'm not going to meet you because if I introduce you to my friend over there, I might need a favor from them one day, and I've only got one bite of the apple, right. And I'm going to save it for myself. And I in my experience, that's not how the world works. And the people who think like that might enjoy some short-term success, but in the long run, they're not going to thrive.
Beautiful. So in terms of having these goals clear, having the clear goals, is there anything else you can give us to a process that you would have people go through, or any other tips on getting that clarity up front?
Well, the goal setting is very important. Sometimes people begin that process by doing self-assessment, using tools like Strength Finders, Myers-Briggs. Sometimes it's as simple as making a list of 5 people who know you well and asking them about your strengths and what you do well and what you excel in. Once you know what your strengths are, I think it helps you get clear about where you want to go and what you want to do. Again, there could be value if you're struggling with this and working with a career coach for a few hours, or tapping into services at a university career services office or a public employment branch office. There are also great books out there. And Some people approach it in different ways. They like to work with individuals. People like to do to read. But you got to know what your strengths are, where you want to go, and what you have to offer.
Beautiful. So when you have that clarity on your goals, like in terms of fulfillment, people's fulfillment in life, what do you think leads to real fulfillment in a career?
I think it comes at when people are playing to their strengths, they're doing what they're best at and enjoy the most. And so that's why it's even more doubly important to know what your strengths are and what your goals are. I think, no job is perfect. You don't get to do everything you want to do, but if you can get clear about what you want to do, you can probably get most of it. And I think also the people who have the most satisfaction professionally are generous. They know what they're good at. They know where they want to do it, and they help others. And they don't wait to be picked. They have a roadmap of where they want to go, and they not only think about their own needs, but they help others along the way.
Yeah, awesome. In terms of your habits, is there any habits you recommend as a daily or a weekly regimen that keeps you successful, that you think other, whether it's a job seeker, someone who has a job, entrepreneur, whatever it might be, is there any kind of habits that you do that you always recommend or that you would recommend?
Well, I think for job seekers, it's important to set aside a certain amount of time every day to work on your search, but also recognize that you don't have to do it 10 hours a day. It takes time. So to find a good opportunity, if you're looking for a professional position, Chris, it might be a 3 to 6 month search, even in this market with record unemployment. So what I would say is, recognize, take time for yourself. I think, in my own career, I found that having daily exercise, I cycle to work every day, is a great distressor. And I think making time for friends and family is always important. You can't work all the time. And in the end, nobody wishes they'd spent more time at the office. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So definitely getting that exercise, staying connected with our relationships. That's a big focus for you, as I keep seeing coming up over and over again, is like how important and powerful relationships have been in your life, Mac, and really investing in those around us, taking the extra time. I know for me, I send video messages to people to stay connected, like people in my network, because a phone call is great, and it sometimes we don't have necessarily the time to touch multiple people, and a text message is really not doing it as much as a call or in person or whatever it might be. So the video message is a really great next solution that I found. And for people, I think, who are looking for job seeking, that could be a great way to connect with other people who are in different industries that you want to get connected with. If you're getting the steel wall or the cold shoulder or whatever it might be, a video message might be a way to bring in a little bit more intimacy to be able to connect with that person. So I love using video to connect with people. But Mac, we're beginning to wrap it up now, and we want to know, what are the final takeaways for tapping into the hidden job market that you really want people to get from this interview?
I think we've hit the high points. Be clear about your goals. Know the companies you want to work at. Know what you have to offer. And think about how you spend your time. And above all, Chris, step away from the computer. Please visit my job board and the other job boards out there. But don't spend more than 20 or 30% of your time online. You got to get out and talk to people, connect with people, show them what you want and what you offer. And above all, I would say, be of service to others. The more you give without any expectation of getting anything in return, the more you will get back. So I found that to be a successful principal for people professionally and personally, and I think it will serve your listeners well.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Mac. And how do our listeners who are loving this conversation, they want to get to know you more, they want to tap into the resources, they want to tap into your job board, how do they stay connected with you, and what do we want them to do next?
Well, they can visit maxlist.org/greatestself, and they'll find materials there about the hidden job market and how they can tap into it. I also encourage listeners to visit our website, maxlist.org, and listen to our weekly podcast, Find Your Dream Job. That's at maxlist.org/podcasts. Every week I talk to a different career expert about the nuts and bolts of job hunting.
Wow. Amazing, man. Well, thank you for the work you do. Again, I know what it's like to have a parent who's unemployed. I think most time there's a good amount of percentage of the population whose parent one or the other, or who's dealt with unemployment at least at some point in their life. So, really thank you for the knowledge and the education, the wisdom, and the support that you provide for people who are in that transitional period, who are committed to getting to their next phase, a higher station in life, a better position for fulfillment for themselves, for their family, for society, and their community. So thank you for what you do.
Well, thank you, Chris, and I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show. Thanks again for the invitation.
Thanks, Mac. We'll see you soon, okay? And have the best day ever.
All right. You too. Take care.